out. Here come former SportsCenter anchor Bob Stevens, esteemed basketball coach Rich Basirico, and Hall of Fame sports writer Curry Kirkpatrick. And someone's going under the bus.
We don't have enough room under the bus for all the people going under tonight. Bob, Curry, and Rich, we all have our uniforms on. I think that's great. We're all ready to go. So many places we could start. Let's see. We've got a college football player, a very rich college football player in trouble for gambling. We've got two baseball managers have gotten fired in the last 3 or 4 days. We've got the NBA doing all kinds of weird stuff. And, by the way, it's Kentucky Derby weekend. We'll have Derby picks before this show is over. First, we have to start with the next Super Bowl champions, the New York Giants, and their draft. They have drafted pretty much a super team, I think. And I can't see any reason why they don't go undefeated.
Go undefeated. Well, they did have a great draft, I think. The only pick that I didn't cringe at. I mean, they got an offensive lineman. You know how I am about offensive linemen, but they could have gotten Downs at 10, who is supposedly, some people said, the best overall player in the draft, and they talked about picking him at number 5. They had a shot at getting him at number 10 and chose not to and went with the offensive line. So overall, I thought it was a good pick. Curry, you probably have some feedback on the Giants draft. What do you think?
Well, they got Reese, the edge guy, as their first pick, and he was probably going to be the second choice. The Jets chose Bailey instead of him, but Reese, they think he'll be an immediate starter. So, but I agree with you about Caleb Downs. I mean, a lot of the experts have talked about this guy as the best player in the draft. Is the one guy that might wear a yellow blazer in Canton, and he's a great safety. And he fell to Dallas, of course, their rival in the division. Yeah. And he's supposed to be a great, leader and captain type guy. Yeah. And so Dallas has their guy for the foreseeable, 5-10 years. And the Giants could have had him. So I was surprised that they went for what this guy, my ego, to protect Jackson Dart, the offensive lineman. But, when you got a guy like Downs out there, maybe the best guy, I think you should have picked him.
I do too. It's funny. They always say, well, we always pick the best in the first round. We pick the best overall player. We don't really look at position. Well, Downs was the best overall player. And here's the thing. The offensive lineman from Miami has a bad back. Do you take a risk on an athlete in the top 10 when you have some medical issues? Like, I was shocked that was the Saints took Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State, who he's missed 17 football games during his college career. 17. That's like a third of his career. And they took him with the 8th overall pick. He's very talented, but do you really take that risk when you're drafting so high? I didn't. So with the Giants, Curry, I agree with you 100%. Even though I love offensive linemen, Downs could have made an impact. and Harbaugh, he always talks about defense, starting with his defense, right? So there you go. I mean, Downs is right there for me.
I'm totally surprised, especially because it was Harbaugh that didn't choose him. Bob, you talk about super teams becoming super teams really quick. The Browns, their first 4 guys, the pundits say, are going to be immediate starters. So what a draft they had.
Well,
they got the.
First of all, that tells you how bad they are.
Right.
That the first 4 guys they drafted will all be starters.
And this guy Concepcion from Texas A&M, the receiver, a couple of guys said that he might be rookie of the year. Wow. And I didn't even know about him, but they, and then they got a great safety from Toledo. I think the Browns, of course, they need a quarterback to get the ball to these. They drafted Concepcion and the other receiver, Denzel Boston. It's either Denzel Boston from Washington or Denzel Washington from Boston. I can't remember which one. But to get the ball, those guys, they need a quarterback.
Well,
right?
they drafted another quarterback. Thinking they drafted 2 last year, and they drafted Green out of Arkansas this year.
Yeah,
So
nobody
in 2
knows.
years, they drafted 3 quarterbacks,
Yeah.
right? Um,
At
and they
least three.
and they still
Who's,
have
who's
our
Green's
friend.
father? Who's Green's father? Because nobody ever heard of him. They got Sanders. They got him last year because his father.
Right.
Who's Green's father? I don't.
They
Oh,
they
Mr.
still don't
Mr.
have. That's the thing. They still don't have a quarterback. But here, first of all, they could have had Diego Pavia. Nobody picked him. We got to talk about
well,
him in a minute.
he
And
goes to
but I
Baltimore.
think what the Browns are doing next year. Let's see, Dante Moore of Oregon, Arch Manning of Texas, Lenora Sellers of South Carolina, Julian Sayin from Ohio State, Trinidad Chambliss of Ole Miss, and Sam Levitt, who is also a great quarterback, and C.J. Carr of Notre Dame. There's like 8 great quarterbacks coming out next year. So
And they got the gambler.
staying in
They
the
got the
lead.
gambler. They got the gambler too. If he gets
And
back,
they got the gambler. We'll talk about
But,
Brandon
but
Sorsby here in a minute.
but
Brandon Sorsby might go out this year now because he's in so much trouble with the NCAA. He might
Yeah.
have to just go pro, and they'll have a supplemental draft. The Browns had some success doing that years ago with Bernie Kosar, but that's how long ago that was. And
I was really disappointed in my Bills. They traded down not one, not two, but 3 times. They traded down to
Yeah.
get defense, and their first 2 drafts were Parker, the edge guy from Clemson, and then another Ohio State corner. I think they needed another receiver, and they passed up. They could have had Cooper, what's his name?
amazing. Yeah.
Mendoza's top guy at Indiana. They
Right.
could have had him or Denzel Boston.
right.
And they didn't. I don't know if they even got a receiver way down in the draft. But
They
I
did.
think
They did. They got a kid from Connecticut who's supposed to have some wheels and run. But Curry doesn't. I mean, Buffalo do that every year. They bypass receivers. They
I
haven't.
guess.
I mean, it doesn't
Well,
seem like they've ever drafted like a top-notch receiver. In all these drafts, you got Allen as your quarterback, and for some reason they bypass top-notch wide receivers. That doesn't make sense. But Bob, I got to go back to what you were saying about those quarterbacks. You said 8. You call off 8 names. That's how it was this past year. They called out about 6 or 8 quarterbacks who were going to be great. All these guys are going to be great. The kid from Clemson, the kid from LSU, the kid from Penn State, and none of them turned out. To be worth a darn. So
Although that's the other thing I want to get into.
Well, we don't know. We don't know if they're going to be worth a darn.
Good, but the thing that drives me crazy about the draft is if you got a steal, if a guy was supposedly the 20th best player in the draft and you got him at 52, boy, what a great draft!
Right.
Maybe he's only the 52nd best player. I mean, maybe it's the idiots who think they know that.
Right. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
Rich,
Weird
you were
stuff.
talking about why don't you begin the maybe the most interesting pick was the kid Ty Simpson of Alabama
You're right.
going to the
everybody
Rams at 13.
all
go ahead.
the experts talked about him going like late first, more likely second, and he goes 13th overall. And he goes to a team that sure you're going to need some depth at the quarterback position, but a lot of the experts think that the Rams are going to be vying for the Super Bowl next year. If all the pieces fall in place.
Of course.
So why don't you go get is your team perfect right now that you don't need the 13th overall pick in the draft that can come in and play for you right away? Instead, they're going to get a guy that's going to help them maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years. Get a guy that can come in and play right now. If you're drafting the top 15 of the draft, you got to think those 15 guys should be able to come in and start. You would think. For a team that's vying for the championship, they're not rebuilding. Obviously.
Well, that's what Matt Stafford said. All of what you said is what
Really?
he probably said. And apparently they told him the day of the draft that they were going to draft Simpson. And the intrigue behind this is kind of interesting because the demeanor of Sean McVay on the draft, everybody criticized, said he looked really disappointed, really upset. but he and the GM, Les Snead, the GM is looking down the road. The coach is looking for this year.
Correct.
And apparently McVay had a long discussion with Ty Simpson on the phone. Did you read about this? This just came out after the draft, like 2 days later.
Yeah.
And it was in secret. And Simpson said they wanted him to keep it quiet. So, and he said it was hours long. They just talked and talked about the quarterback position. And McVay, I guess, just fell in love with Simpson's tapes.
Okay.
Now, Rich, you can talk about that because I don't understand that. But
well,
here's the thing.
He's only been a starter at Alabama this year, right? He's been at Alabama
15 games is all he started.
So how do you, you evaluate in 15 games when you get all these other guys that played, 30, 40 games. It's funny in the NFL, you can have one good season, then, if you have a good season, man, you go up the ranks just like that. You have a couple of good games and, man, you fly up the rankings.
What have you done for me lately? Yep.
Right. And then you get other guys that show over a period of time they've been consistent with their play. Maybe they're, that's the stats don't show up as well. But to get a guy on the 13th overall, he's only played 15. Curry, who was your quarterback at North Carolina that was drafted, I think, 2nd overall, who only played one season?
Trubisky.
Right. And look what happened to him. Whereas he's a backup, backup forever. He'll be a backup forever. And they did the same thing.
He played all those games. He should have been picked high. That's what you were just selling. Is take the guy who's played all the games.
Speaking of North Carolina and Belichick, just a quick note. How many guys do you think Belichick had drafted? Zero.
Wow.
And Deion Sanders' team, Colorado, how many guys drafted? Zero. I mean, what are we doing here?
That's right.
You gotta get some players.
I think the Giants did sign a defensive back for North Carolina, free agent, after the draft was over. After the draft was over, yeah.
And as you mentioned, Rich, after the draft was over, the Ravens signed Diego Pavia, who was not picked by anybody. I question that.
Bob, come on. He's a midget. He's a midget.
So was Drew Brees.
He's a midget. He's shorter than Drew Brees. Come on.
He's going to end up being the Doug Flutie.
All right. Good.
He'll go to Canada. He'll be great, and he'll come back. The draft experts had the Giants and the Browns as the top two in the draft.
Wow.
There you go.
And you know what? Two of their top three drafts last year, they had the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots.
Wow. Look at that.
The top three, and guess what happened? So, Rich, we got hope.
There you go.
We do, Bob. Hey, Bob, if the Giants and Browns make it to the Super Bowl, we are going. That would be a miracle. That would absolutely be a miracle. All of us will go. All of us will go.
No, because I'll be under the bus. I
think you're safe, Curry.
Okay.
I think you're safe.
One more item about the draft. Rich mentioned a quarterback gets hot and it makes his career. Nussmeier, the kid from LSU, had a great junior year. Remember, and he went up the top. He was going to be the number one choice this year. Then he had a terrible senior year. Of course, he had injuries. The team was terrible. The coach got fired, et cetera, et cetera. So he finally went way down the draft, right, and got drafted by the Chiefs. Did the Chiefs select him?
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's going to be the success.
7. Well,
how'd you like to be carrying the clipboard for with the
Chiefs? He's a wild man. He throws it all over the place. But I love guys like that. So
here's got the job there in Kansas City.
We do have to throw Bob. We do have to throw some teams under the bus. Reuben Bain, the edge rush from Miami, was talked about being in the top 5 of the draft. He went 15th to Tampa Bay. And it all came down to the length of his arms. Think about that.
Oh yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah.
he's losing out on millions of dollars because the NFL scouts think his arms are too long. How did he get to the quarterback at a major college team? He got to the quarterback and because his arms were too short. It doesn't. That blows my mind. It really
Well,
does.
the length of their wingspan and the size of their
Size of
hand.
hand.
Yeah, that's the other amazing one to me. Crazy stuff. Okay, on a related note, so is somebody going to end up with Brendan Sorsby, the kid from Texas Tech? He transfers. He was at Indiana, by the way.
Oh, he
Just-
was. Oh.
Just
Well,
3
that's where he
years
did
ago.
that. That's where he did all his betting, apparently.
That's right.
When he was
That's
when
right.
he was
Apparently,
yeah,
he bet on Indiana.
yeah. But
Now
still,
he would
he's.
not.
I don't know why there's all this, you know, uh, talk about him and where he's going to play and when he's going to play and how he's going to be ineligible. He cannot play college football anymore. I mean, according to the NCAA rules as they go, if he bet, he was on the he wasn't on the was he even on the team? He was one of the redshirt guys.
Yeah.
But but he admits it. He's now gone into rehab for addictive gambling.
Yeah.
He admits that he bet on games there. So, I mean, according to the NCAA rules, and Pete Thamel, who's reporting for ESPN, he's going to be ineligible to play college football.
He should be.
So, because he has used up his red shirt and all that, he could come out and there could be a supplemental draft. I haven't looked to see what the order in that is, but somebody could end up with Sorsby and for getting paid, although he may not want to go because he was going to get paid $4 million to play at Texas
that's
Tech,
unbelievable.
which is
I guess he figured he'd pay off his bets with that. He figured he's going to pay. Rich was declared ineligible many years ago, I think, for betting on college games. He hasn't been eligible for years.
And I wasn't able to pay anybody off because I didn't get any money.
No NIL money, and you didn't even win any of the bets. So
That's exactly.
I gotta ask you guys about the 49ers draft, just one team, because they never draft anybody, and they're always criticized for their drafts. And they've got two of the great geniuses in football, John Lynch, and then the quarterback,
the coach,
what's his name?
Shanahan.
Shanahan. But they're always reaching, it seems to me, in drafts, right? They drafted two guys. Well, they drafted Stribling, the wideout from Ole Miss, but then the rest of their guys, it sounds like they just drafted them for their names because they have great names. Romello Height, Jasper Dugar, and then my favorite, Ephesius Prysock was their last rusher. So they drafted an all-name team.
When they have to understand that nobody's ever won a Super Bowl with a guy named Ephesius on their roster. I mean, they ought to know that going in and not pick those guys. I don't get it.
And height is a trait, not a name. They drafted.
Right.
I think they thought the guy was tall.
Maybe he was tall. Yeah. Isn't that what Wembanyama means in some other language? Really tall guy. Crazy stuff. All right. If we're done, and I hope we are with the draft, we got lots more to go here. We got to talk about the thing that happened last week that may be the most amazing athletic feat, and nobody's talked about it, and that's breaking 2 hours in the marathon. We'll talk about that and a whole lot of other stuff and throw some other people under the bus right after this. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Bob Stevens along with Curry Kirkpatrick and the coach, Rich Basirico. How about that? The London Marathon. Not only did the first guy ever to break 2 hours do it, Sebastian Sawe, the guy who finished second, just a tenth of a second behind him, also broke 2 hours. I mean, that's like the 4-minute mile. We were old enough to remember when that happened.
Right.
2 hours for a marathon. That's
amazing. Amazing. How about the robots? Didn't the robots finish too?
I think
that was in the Boston Marathon.
Yes, they did, and they're pretty good, and they're going to ruin distance running.
Yeah.
All right, so enough about apparently not much traction for that one. Let's go. We can.
There's too much going on. I missed that. I was too interested in the king coming to visit the White House. So I guess London. I didn't hear anything about London other than the king coming here.
They had a marathon too. So Major League Baseball. Let's do that then. Two of the good managers of teams that were supposed to be good but got off to bad starts, out of here before the end of April. Joey Cora Alex Cora gets fired last weekend, and then just today, Tuesday, Rob Thompson got fired by the Phillies because they're off to a poor start. Man, does anybody get any slack anymore?
Well, Alex Cora, they brought him back, right? Because he won the 2018 World Series with the Red Sox.
Right.
He's one of the few guys that has a winning record overall. His postseason, he's 18-10 in the postseason. He has all these credentials, and they start off 10-17. So let's not think about the players have anything to do with this. This is all the coach. It's all the coach's fault because they're 10-17.
Well, and it was a Saturday night massacre. I mean, they fired Cora and 5 coaches. Right. They apparently had a bus waiting for him that took him to the airport. Then they had a private plane taking him from Baltimore to Boston. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the thing is, all the players think the wrong guy was fired. You know, the Red Sox have what he's called a chief baseball officer, whatever that means. Craig Breslow. He's a former, I don't know if you remember this guy, but he's a former journeyman pitcher who majored in molecular biophysics at Yale. He was once called the smartest man in baseball. Wow. But he apparently he's put together this roster for Cora, and it's a disaster. And the players all thought Breslow should have been fired. You know, they had a meeting to tell the players, and John Henry, the Red Sox president, was there and never even spoke. He never said one word. Wow. And apparently the players were, I read all the Boston papers on this. Yeah. The players were not allowed to speak in a meeting. And then they spoke afterward to the media, and many of them were in tears. Yeah. And they said, you know, Breslow should be out of here, not Cora, and not our coaches. I mean, one of the coaches was the beloved Jason Varitek. They fired him. He's been there forever.
Right. And played for him.
I mean, the Sox do some terrible things over their history, and this was one of the worst. I mean, the Boston writers are going crazy.
But isn't one of the things that they complained about was it's based on metrics, you know, the way they coach.
Yeah, that's Breslow.
Right, all in metrics. So, you know, when you go 10-17, and Cora's proven time and time again he's a good manager. Players love to play for him. How do you throw him under the bus when what Curry just mentioned about this guy's get rid of the metrics, go out and play? They said the younger players in their organization think that's a bunch of, you know what, the metrics, just go out and play. And Cora's the guy that he's the guy to lead them. He really is. They brought up the AAA manager to take over. Yeah. Did they not also fire the staff after they won a game 17-1?
Yeah, 17-1. But they had it in the cards. They had it in the cards. Those guys were leaving 17-1. But Breslow, you know, he took the low road as well. I mean, he's the guy that fired Cora, and he got, you know, permission from Henry. But one guy had a great quote. He said, "This was like pooping your pants and then changing your shirt." It's the total wrong guy. The wrong guy they got rid of. But then he goes and so the Phillies fired Thompson, Monday morning or Sunday night? I guess it was Sunday. They decided to fire him. Dombrowski, president of Phillies, fired Rob Thompson, and he calls up his boy Cora because that's his boy. He was with him with the Red Sox, and he offered. Apparently, he said he offered Cora the job, and Alex didn't want to take it. He wanted to be with his family. Speaking of family, they put Donnie Baseball is the new interim manager of the Phillies. Right. Yeah. You know, his son, speaking of family, His son is the general manager of the Phillies.
Oh,
How
wow.
does that work? So he's not going to get fired, apparently.
Well, the Phillies did this a couple of years ago. They fired Joe Girardi, another former
and
Yankee
it worked.
manager, and brought in Thompson, and it worked. They went to the playoffs. They made a deep run, but that's just bizarre. The goofy thing is there's going to be 2 more fired in the next week. I mean, how much rope do you give the Mets manager?
Right.
How about the Mets guy? Yeah, he's got to be good.
Yeah.
Well,
and my Cardinals lost 4 games in a row until they beat the Pirates the other night in the ninth. Had a big ninth inning, but I think it's time for my Cardinals to get Yadi Molina or Albert Pujols in the manager spot, because I think the Cardinals are going to be
both at the top of the list.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's word that the Red Sox are interested in Pujols as well. Yeah. So
maybe Breslow thinks he can still hit.
That's right. the analytics say so.
Yeah.
One guy who can't get fired is Rich's buddy, Boone.
Booney. They all of a sudden they started playing well. Again, it's not how well he managed. It's the players. So when the players don't play well, they don't win. And when they start hitting the ball and Judge hits home runs and everything else, they start to win. So that's what I'm saying about Corey. You fired a guy because the players weren't playing well. In a game of baseball, does the manager have that much of an impact on all the hitters and the way they field the ball? I mean, Boone's gone from, they talked about him maybe getting fired 2 weeks ago. Now he's like on top of the world.
Yeah. Did he teach what's his name the rules? That might have saved his job. The second baseman who doesn't know the put out rule.
Chisholm,
I think
Chisholm, yeah.
Jazz
Chisholm, yeah. He's not a good Yankee fit. He's not a good Yankee. He is. It drives me crazy with his hat on the side after a game's over.
I know. I love it when he's a whack job Yankee.
Well, speaking of whack jobs, we've got them in basketball. We've got them around the rest of the world of sports. The sport these guys really know, Curry and Rich. We'll talk NBA, the playoffs, who's going to win this thing now that we're starting to finally weed teams out when we come back and throw some other folks under the bus. Welcome back under the bus. Bob Stevens, Curry Kirkpatrick, Rich Basirico with you. We've thrown a whole lot of other people under the bus. What about the NBA? Anybody you guys see over the last
Detroit
week?
Pistons. The Detroit Pistons. I mean, they had the third best overall record. They won 60 games this year. And they're down to the number 8 seed, who was lucky. I mean, they had a playing game. Remember, they lost the first game, and they had to come back and beat Charlotte. And now they're down 3-1. I mean, how do you win 60 games? And now you would think at least they win the first series. I mean, they could still come back, but
Cade Cunningham, their best player, gets no help at all offensively. No help. They have no shoot. They have nobody else that can shoot. Duran, the big guys, have a terrible series. But Cunningham, I watched one of these games the other night. He has 24 turnovers in the last 3 games because he's throwing the ball to guy. I mean, he has. They've cut off all his angles and his shooting is down, and they get a home game to try and save it, but I think they're gone. I think New Orleans.
I think so too. I really do. That's Orlando. A huge upset. Now, their lack of experience, people talked about when they get going into the playoffs, their lack of playoff experience is going to show up, and sure as heck it is showing up. But you still got to think we won 60. It was 60-22. That's a pretty darn good record. And you got to think Cunningham was out 3 weeks or so where he didn't even play.
They played well without him.
But that's when teams start to pick up their defense and start to kind of really play play much better defense. Bottom line, they play much better defense in the playoffs, and it's really taken a toll on Detroit. It's kind of, how do you win 60 games like Curry? Like you say, you got outside of Cunningham who can score, but they did well enough throughout the season. But now they can't make it happen.
Well, Rich, I thought you were going to go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I was just going to say, is there something to be taken from this, that a team that could be really dangerous before it's over? San Antonio was down 17 at the half in their last game and still won by 21.
Right, how about that? That's crazy, isn't it?
Playoff game. I mean, Wembanyama, who had had a concussion, comes back from a concussion, 27, 11, 7 blocks and 4 steals. You know, I watched pro basketball in an era where one guy, 23 from Chicago, made a whole lot of difference when he wanted to. Did Wembanyama do that sort of thing this year?
Yeah.
Well, they're talking about their lack of experience, but boy, I think they're a real threat to win the whole thing, because Wembanyama, I mean, he's must-see TV. It's amazing how he plays. I mean, I still can't believe how good he is. But Rich, I thought you were going to hone right in on your favorite player, LeBron James, when we were talking about under the bus here, and talk about his game 4 against Houston when he had a terrible game the other night, the most recent game. But I'm gonna make Rich mad here, because I'm gonna talk about LeBron's first 3 games against Houston, where he's just been carrying the Lakers. At 41 years old, they're up 3-0. And when he in the first game, he threw the lob pass to Bronny, all I could think of was Rich Basirico punching himself in the face. But I thought it was very cool. It was right after Bronny gave LeBron an assist, and then LeBron throws the alley-oop pass to Bronny. I thought it was very cool.
Well, that's it.
Run, could he give it up? Could LeBron say, okay, I got to play with my kid in the playoffs and throw him a couple alley-oops? That's enough?
It might be. It might be.
Well, my under the bus in that series goes to Kevin Durant. What is the deal with him? He's supposed to be the Iron Man, and every game he has a different injury. He announces after every practice he has a different. He's missed these games, and he can't play in this series. And now it's going back to LA, and apparently he's not going to play in that game either.
He keeps getting run over by the bus.
I mean, Rich, don't you think the Lakers move on now? They're going to get not Luka back. Who's the other guy they're getting back for game 5?
Was it Reeves? Reeves.
They're getting Reeves back apparently game 5, and then if they
make a big difference.
If Luka plays for them, they're going to go up against the champs. And I don't know. You never count LeBron out.
No.
It's amazing what he's been doing.
No, it is amazing. I give him all the credit in the world. He's an exceptional basketball player, especially when you think of his age, what he's doing on the basketball court. But I think the Lakers do beat Houston. I don't see them coming close to beating Oklahoma City. I just don't see that happening.
Well, I don't.
But if Luka comes back and they have the whole squad and he keeps Bronny on the bench, they have a shot.
Well, here's some chokes. Here's some under the bus chokes for you. We mentioned Cunningham in Detroit. Yeah. How about our boy James Harden? Yeah. Cleveland. The last 2 games now, they've been upset the last 2 games by Toronto, right. And now that thing is tied. Harden in the last 2 games, 15 turnovers, 15. Yeah. And it just gets back to what he's always been, his career. I mean, if the playoffs had like a captain choke, which they don't, but he'd be it, right? Yeah. I mean, the guy, his whole history, great regular season, terrible playoffs. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Seriously.
Well, there's some players, as we all know, are gamers. when the game's on the line, LeBron being one of them. Of course, Jordan was the best. When the game is on the line, they're going to come through. And there are some guys, when the game's on the line, for whatever reason, they can't make it happen. They don't finish. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. And Harden's one of those guys. When the game's on the line, he doesn't. I mean, he's had some great games and some great shots, but you're talking about the playoffs, Curry, and this is what happens to him for whatever reason. That's why does he bounce around the league if he's so successful and being a team player? Why does he bounce around the league that way?
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Somebody in the league certainly knows. Teams down 3-1 in the NBA have only come back to win 4% of the time.
Wow.
You get down 3-1.
I don't know if
Denver
any.
is the last one to do it, and they're the last two to do it.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Sorry.
Denver.
Oh, Denver. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if any of you guys. I don't know if any of you guys saw Game 3 of Lakers Houston, but that was the biggest choke in our lifetime. Maybe Houston. I saw this live. I saw the end of it. Houston is up 6 with 30 seconds to go. LeBron had just made 2 turnovers, a turnover twice. He missed a shot. Jabari Smith has the ball. All he has to do for Houston, all he has to do is dribble the ball down. At 6-point lead, 30 seconds left. He throws a pass into traffic, which Marcus Smart intercepts, gets fouled, makes the three, he shoots a 3, gets fouled, makes all 3 free throws. Houston gets it again, and that white guard for Houston, what's his name from Kentucky?
Shepard.
He can't play. This guy can't. He gets the ball, and LeBron knocks it out from his hands from behind. The Lakers get it again, and LeBron makes a 3 to tie the game. And he almost wins the game with a 3 at the buzzer. So it goes in overtime, and Lakers win easily. It's like Houston just gave up.
Yeah,
it was awful. It was a professional team. 6 points up with 30 seconds left with the ball.
Well, how many times does it happen, especially during the regular season, when a team is up in the NBA by 17, 20, 22, and they lose the lead, and you think, this is not a high school basketball game. This is professional guys. You got a 20-point lead. I'm not saying, maybe they knock it down to 10, 8, whatever. But how do you give up a 20-point lead? Like you mentioned the other day, San Antonio was down 17 and won by 21. That's a 38-point. You're playing against professional guys getting paid millions of dollars. They're the best in the world, and you can't somewhat sustain that lead. I mean, they don't make that many changes defensively to make that much of a difference in the game. I don't think at that level.
Rich, you won hundreds of games as a coach, Hall of Fame career, lost. I'm sure you remember the losses more than you remember the wins, because that's how coaches are.
Right.
You ever blow a lead, a 17-point lead, and lose by 21?
I don't think so.
You would not have been around.
Rich, did you ever blow a 17-point lead and lose by 2?
Yeah.
You know what, guys, I don't remember. I remember, Bob, as you mentioned, games you lose on the last second shot. I mean, I can give you several of those, but I don't know being up 17 and I mean, we don't get me wrong, we've lost leads, obviously, but a 17-point lead. Of course, again, in high school basketball, it's 32 minutes compared to 48 minutes in the NBA. So, I mean, I've seen 15-point leads change, where going in the fourth quarter and having success, you ride one of the tails of one of your player hitting a couple of threes and getting that rhythm. But 17 and then you win by 21. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was the first team. I think that was the first team in history to be behind by 15 or more and win by 15 or more. Yeah. I think it's the first time it's ever been done. Look, tonight we're doing this on a Tuesday night.
Yes.
The Celtics, Sixers, and the Knicks, Atlanta. Right. What do you think? What do you guys think of the Sixers bringing back Embiid for his cameo the other night? And he gets huge numbers, and they're terrible. They're worse than they were without him.
That's right.
What do you think of them doing that?
I think it's hard to do that. I know at that level, when the superstar is ready to play, they're going to throw him right back in the lineup. I think it's very hard to do that. I remember I had a kid who sprained his ankle at the end of the season, and we were fortunate enough to make it to the state finals. And I didn't. He recovered and he wanted to play. I didn't play him because we've been playing together as a team for 2 weeks. We got into a rhythm, and I just felt it wasn't the right thing to do.
That's really a thing. That's really a thing. I didn't realize that's really a thing.
I think so. I mean, of course, you got to play him. I mean, he's a superstar, but I think you don't. I think you don't start him. I really don't. I think you let him come off the bench and see how the flow of the game's going. But these guys have been playing in the playoffs. You know, they raise their energy level and defensively and the way they play in the playoffs. And now all of a sudden, we've been playing for I don't know how many games before he came back. And now all of a sudden, you go, okay, how are we going to make this go now? How are we going to make this happen? Because they don't have that many days to practice. Usually they play a day off play. So how many days did he practice with the starting group? I don't know.
Well, and he was coming off an appendectomy. You know, the guys in the studio Shaquille O'Neal was all joking that it was minor surgery. Of course, it's minor when it's surgery on somebody else. That's minor. Yeah. We coming about, but Embiid, you guys, the Celtics just targeted him on defense. He had he seemed to have no idea what he was doing on the defensive cuts and switches. He had no idea. And they not only played him, Rich, they went to him the whole time. Maxey only took 3 shots in the first half or something like that. Their star player.
He's the one that's got to carry them. Maxey has to carry them.
I think the Sixers are a mess. You know, the Paul George thing didn't work out. They've got maybe it's time, you know, for the legendary Daryl Morey, who's the head of the Sixers. They're a total mess. For Daryl Morey and the GM is Elton Brand, of course, a Duke guy. No wonder. And then they brought in Nick Nurse to be the coach. I think they need Nurse Ratched to figure the Sixers out. They're a total mess. I mean, they should be one of the great franchises in the league year after year, and they're just a mess.
I think they're going to get hammered tonight. I really think they're going to get hammered.
It's over.
It's all a process. Isn't that what Maury's been all these years? It's a process. Right. Are we to the point of the process now where the GM gets fired? Out the door. Get him out.
Well, speaking of under the bus and coaches' decisions, Rich, I want to ask you about your boy Mike Brown tonight. Now the Knicks saved themselves in Game 4, right? They blew out Atlanta. When Mike Brown figured it out finally to get the ball, not to the little guard, but
Brunson.
to get the cat man, Carl Anthony Towns. Because Atlanta doesn't have anybody that can guard him.
Right.
Why does it take Brown 4 games to figure that out?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Remember last week when we did the show, I pointed out that Towns in one of the games they lost shot the ball twice in the fourth quarter. He was 0 for 2 twice. When your player, we'll call him the second best player on the Knicks. We'll call Brunson number 1. How does he only touch the ball twice? I mean, you got to call timeout, and you got to explain to your players, look, guys, we're riding him right now. His size, he can shoot the 3, he can take it to the rack. That's the kind of thing, and it's a great question, Curry. Why does it take him so long to figure that out? I mean, they have, how many assistant coaches? Those guys break down films right and left. I mean, that's all they do. The game's over, they're breaking down film. How do they not pick up on that?
I know.
And Atlanta, overcoached? I think they're overcoached. You roll the ball out there and let them play.
Yeah, at that level, yes, you're right, Bob. At that level, definitely.
Just let them go.
Anybody else? The thing is, if the other team doesn't have anybody that can guard your man, isn't that the man to get the ball to?
Absolutely. That's where coaching comes in. You have to see that and isolate him, which they do in the NBA all the time. Isolate him and get the ball to him and let him do his thing. Like as Bob said, let him do his thing.
All right. Let's do the last throws under the bus, and then we'll.
I have one. I have the NCAA today came out and said they're going to expand the NCAA basketball tournament to 76 teams. I think that's bad. I'm throwing them under the bus. The NCAA. Here's the great quote from that. Listen to this. The expansion isn't expected to be a financial windfall, but sources stress that there will be a profit. It's all about finances. That's all it's about is finances. Come on now. How about watering down the tournament? I mean, sure, every year there's 2 or 3 teams that people debate about should be in the tournament. Now they're expanding it to 76. The Citadel will be in it next year.
And they're expanding the women. They're expanding the women's field too.
Yeah.
Are they?
So what's going to be the first game? 87-12. That'll be one of the first games.
You're right.
There are not 76 teams that can win that tournament. That's for sure. Curry, last shots?
No, I'm going to leave that for Rich because that's a great one. I saw that just before we came on, and breaks my heart as a guy that's been watching this tournament forever.
Yeah.
It's just it's perfect now, if not too big already. They shouldn't go from 64 to 76. It's a joke.
Too much, way too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Curry, you ever cover a Kentucky Derby?
Oh, I got a story on that. I did. I was doing a story on Rick Pitino, who owned a horse that ran in the Derby. Right. And I was there doing an ESPN TV feature on Pitino. And of course, we did the story in the middle of the week to get it ready for Saturday. And I was going to get to stay and watch the Kentucky Derby. And ESPN called me from New York and said, we want you to go to Minnesota to do the NBA playoffs. So I missed my shot at the Kentucky Derby. Pitino was going to get me there, which, ironically enough, are we going to go into the Derby now?
Let's do it. This is it. Yep.
Because the favorite is a horse named Renegade, who's 5-1, and he's owned by Mike Rapoli, who's the vitamin czar, vitamin water czar, who bankrolls St. John's basketball. Rich, you know that guy. Wow. That's Pitino's guy, and he bankrolls the whole St. John's basketball. He has the favorite horse. The problem is Renegades drew the number one post, which is dreaded. So not good for him.
No, you think we'll see Pitino Saturday?
I think he'll be there. Yeah, he's Rapoli's buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
And then we can throw him under the bus.
The question, will we see Louis Carnesecca there? That's
if we see him there, that's kind of scary if we see Louis.
Yeah.
Yes, Renegade is the favorite. Commandment. Further ado.
That's commandment in English, Bob. That's commandment in English.
Did I? What did I say?
I thought you said commandment.
No. as in 10 of them. As in, he's got them tattooed on his backside.
Yeah, that's right.
Chief Wallaby could be a factor. I just there's a name to remember. I looked through today the daily racing form. I looked through to see, because I always say pick a gray horse that has good odds, and there is no Gato del Sol in this field.
No gray.
Mostly brown horses, and so I like the fact that Renegade won the Arkansas Derby. I think I have been to the Arkansas Derby, and so that I have not been to the Kentucky Derby, but I've been to the Arkansas Derby. And
I've been to the Louisiana Derby in New Orleans. So I was picked the winner in the Louisiana Derby. I'm not sure who that is this year, but I do have a favorite. Bob Baffert has 2 horses in the race, but they're both long shots. So obviously one of them will probably win. He's going for his 7th. I think he's going for his 7th Kentucky Derby, which would be a record, right?
Is this the first year he's been back? Because they barred him.
I think he was back last year.
Yeah, he missed. He was back last year. Yeah. Another of favorites is Further Ado, who is ridden by John Velasquez, and he's really got the wide gate 18. He's way on the 18, and Velasquez has won the Derby 3 times. But my favorite, I've got a favorite horse, and it's So Happy, whose odds are down to 7-1. And So Happy is ridden by 59-year-old Mike Smith, who's going to set a record if he wins it. The oldest jockey to win. If he wins it, he'd beat Bill Shoemaker's record. And So Happy won the Santa Anita Derby, so he's and his odds have gone from yesterday 15-1 down to 7-1.
Wow!
So he's like 34. Yeah.
That's a lot. And the 3 of us have got to be rooting for the old jockey. I mean, we got
to sure, absolutely.
The old guy to bring.
What's the name of that horse again, Curry?
So Happy.
Okay. So happy.
And that's the way we are too. So happy that you all paid attention to this last 50 minutes of strangeness, and we threw a lot of people under the bus. We'll be wearing our shirts again next week, I'm sure. We're going to throw a whole bunch of other people under the bus. because look at what we did this week. We had this many people, and we still haven't even gotten to some of the sports. We'll get them all next week. Thanks so much for joining us. For Rich and Curry, I'm Bob Stevens. Thanks for joining us Under the Bus.
Thanks, guys.
Look out. Here come former sports